A millionaire pretends to be poor to find a father for his twins. Then the black waiter shocked everyone. "I'm sorry, but I believe there's been a misunderstanding," the manager said, blocking Marcus' path as he attempted to serve the guests at table 12. "This table is reserved for customers, not for someone like him." The woman seated alone at the table observed the scene silently. Isabella Rodriguez, 32 years old, watched the exchange, deeply unsettled. She had just witnessed something that would make her reconsider the entire premise of her social experiment. For the past 6 months, she had been posing as a single mother in financial distress, frequenting humble locations in search of a man who could be a true father figure to her 5-year-old twins, Sofia and Diego. But today, she had chosen a different approach. Dressed as usual in modest attire with her hair intentionally tousled, Isabella had made a reservation at the city's most exclusive restaurant under an assumed name. She intended to observe how the staff would treat a customer who appeared to lack financial resources. Marcus Thompson, 28, carried the tray with hands that trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the quiet, controlled fury he had long learned to suppress in environments where his skin color was noticed before anything else. "Mr. Patterson, this is her table," Marcus said, his voice steady but with a hint of defiance. "You specifically requested that I serve her." "Impossible," Patterson responded, his voice dripping with condescension. "Customers of this caliber don't ask to be served by, well, you know." He turned to Isabella, offering a forced smile. "I sincerely apologize for this incident, madam. Allow me to send our finest waiter immediately." Isabella remained silent, taking in the scene before her. The moment felt all too familiar, something she had witnessed during her own childhood. Raised as the daughter of Mexican immigrants, she knew the sting of being judged by her appearance. The difference now was that, at 32, she was the head of a 200 million technology empire. "Actually," Isabella finally said, breaking the silence, "I specifically requested Marcus to serve me. If that poses a problem, I'm more than happy to leave." The manager's discomfort was evident. After all, a customer who paid 400s for a meal was never to be dismissed lightly, even if their request seemed unusual. Marcus approached the table with quiet professionalism, his dignity intact despite the public degradation. Isabella noticed something in his eyes that others would likely miss: a deep, unwavering sense of self-respect, as if he had endured far worse and emerged all the stronger for it. "Good evening, ma'am." Marcus greeted, his voice calm, polite, and free of any bitterness over the earlier incident. "How may I assist you?" Isabella, her voice steady, ordered the most expensive items on the menu, carefully observing as Marcus took note of her requests with meticulous care. Once he left to place the order, Isabella discreetly pulled out her phone and sent a brief message to her assistant. "I need full background information on Marcus Thompson, waiter at Leonardine, urgent." The response came swiftly. Marcus Thompson, 28, holds a degree in education with a specialization in early childhood education. He works 2 jobs to support his younger sister, who is studying medicine. He lost his parents in a car accident 3 years ago. His record is impeccable, and he has no debts except his sister's student loans. Isabella's breath caught. An educator, working as a waiter to fund his sister's education. While the men she had encountered during her experiment often boasted about cars, gambling, and superficial conquests, Marcus was a man who sacrificed his own ambitions for his family's future. As Marcus returned with the appetizer, something unexpected happened. A young child at a nearby table began to cry uncontrollably, much to the distress of the parents. Other customers showed signs of irritation, but Marcus did something none of them expected. To find out how a simple act of kindness would reveal qualities that would change 2 lives forever, and how sometimes we find exactly what we're searching for in the most unexpected places, subscribe to his channel. Marcus, unfazed by the disapproving glares from his colleagues, calmly approached the crying child. Crouching beside the table, he spoke in a gentle voice that instantly soothed the boy. "Hi there, little one. What's your name?" Isabella watched, fascinated, as Marcus diffused the tension in the room. The boy, no older than 4, pointed to his plate with a grimace of disgust. "Not a fan of broccoli?" Marcus asked, offering a warm smile. "Well, I learned something when I was a kid. If you imagine the broccoli as little trees in a magical forest, they taste much better. Want to give it a try?" The boy's parents exchanged surprised glances as their son, now smiling, began eating the broccoli, pretending it was part of a dinosaur forest. Other customers, too, smiled, and the entire atmosphere in the room lightened. Thompson, Patterson's sharp voice cut through the moment. "You're here to serve, not to play teacher with the children." He barked, his authority resounding through the room. Marcus stood, his expression neutral, but Isabella noticed a brief flicker of pain in his eyes. "Excuse me, madam," he said, returning to her table with perfect poise. "I apologize for the interruption." "You don't need to apologize," Isabella replied. "What you did was beautiful." She studied him closely. "You have a special way with children." For a brief moment, Marcus let his professional facade slip. "I worked at a daycare during college," he explained. "Children, they're honest. They don't judge based on the color of your skin or your occupation." Isabella felt a pang in her chest. Here was a man with a degree in education, gifted with children, waiting tables because the world had not yet offered him the opportunities he truly deserved. "Marcus Thompson, table 12. My office, now." Manager Patterson's voice thundered from across the room. Marcus briefly closed his eyes, as if bracing himself for another round of humiliation. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'll be back in just a moment." Isabella followed him discreetly toward the office, hoping to hear what was happening behind closed doors. "How many times do I have to tell you?" Patterson shouted, his voice sharp and accusatory.
"You're not here to babysit."
"This is a respectable institution, not a playground. And that customer at table 12 is complaining about your inappropriate behavior." Isabella almost stood up to protest, but she hesitated. She wanted to see how Marcus would respond. "Mr. Patterson, the child was disturbing the other customers. I simply helped calm him down." Marcus explained, his voice measured. "Don't give me excuses." Patterson snapped. "And by the way, I've had enough of your behavior recently. You're always late, your attitude's questionable." "I've never been late, and I've always maintained a professional attitude," Marcus countered, standing his ground. "Are you contradicting me?" Patterson stepped closer, towering over him. "Maybe it's time we reevaluated whether you're fit for this job. We have standards." Isabella could see Marcus take a deep breath, his hands twitching slightly. But when he spoke, his voice was calm and controlled. "I understand, sir. May I return to my duties?" When Marcus came back to the table, Isabella noticed his hands shaking just slightly as he served her appetizer. She understood now. It wasn't fear, but the same quiet, suppressed anger she had seen in herself many times before. "Everything okay?" she asked gently. For the first time, Marcus met her gaze fully. "Ma'am, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you choose specifically to be served by me today?" Isabella hesitated, surprised by the depth of the question. "Honestly, you were the only one who acknowledged me when I walked in. The others acted as if I didn't even exist." Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "It's a feeling I know all too well." For the next 2 hours, Isabella watched Marcus face a series of microaggressions: the sommelier who ignored his wine recommendations, the hostess who whispered to a colleague as he passed, and the customer at table 5 who refused to be served by him. In each instance, Marcus maintained his dignity and professionalism, showing more grace than most executives she knew. When dessert arrived, a new test was presented. A drunk customer at a nearby table began making loud, racist comments, clearly directed at Marcus. "Look at that. It's like they know how to serve real food," the man mocked. "In my day, people like him knew their place." Isabella saw Marcus' jaw tighten, but he continued organizing the tables with quiet precision. At that moment, the man deliberately knocked over his wine glass onto the floor. "Hey kid, clean this up," he sneered. "That's what you're here for, right?" Marcus bent down and began cleaning the mess, his calmness unwavering. At that moment, Isabella made a choice that would alter everything. She stood up, discreetly pulled out her phone, and started recording. Not only the public humiliation Marcus was enduring, but his dignified and professional response to the abuse. "Sorry for the mess," Marcus said, his voice smooth and polite as he finished cleaning up. "Next time, be faster," the man retorted, clearly expecting a reaction. Marcus simply nodded, his composure intact, before walking away. Isabella captured a moment that no one else saw. Marcus paused briefly in the hallway, leaned against the wall, and took a deep, controlled breath, struggling to maintain his composure. In that instant, she understood that she had discovered something rare. Not just a man who was great with children, but one who possessed an inner strength forged through hardship. What Isabella didn't realize was that Marcus had been watching her too. He had noticed how she treated the staff with respect, how she had left an unusually generous tip for the cleaning crew, and how his eyes had welled with emotion when he saw the child happily eating broccoli. Both of them were testing one another, though neither knew they were seeking the same thing, someone real in a world full of facades. But while Isabella had plans to reveal her true identity, Marcus kept a secret that would soon change everything. From the moment she entered the restaurant, he had known exactly who she was. Isabella finished her meal but stayed seated, pretending to check her emails while subtly observing the dynamics around her. Each of Marcus' interactions peeled back more layers of his character, intriguing her further. When an elderly woman at table 15 dropped her cane, Marcus was the only one who rushed to help her. When the woman mentioned it was her 80th birthday, he discreetly instructed the kitchen to decorate her dessert, covering the expense himself. Thompson. Manager Patterson's sharp voice echoed through the hall once again. Table 5 is complaining that you're taking too long with their order. Isabella noticed Marcus glance at his watch. He had delivered the appetizer just 8 minutes earlier. The usual preparation time was 15 minutes, but he nodded and went to check with the kitchen. At that moment, Isabella made her second decision of the evening. She discreetly dialed her personal assistant. "James, I need you to come to Lou Bernardin immediately, and bring Michelle Chun from the corporate investigation team." While waiting, Isabella continued documenting everything, Patterson deliberately passing Marcus inaccurate orders, other waiters being assigned the best tables, while Marcus was stuck with the difficult ones, and customers being subtly discouraged from asking for him. 20 minutes later, James Hartford, her trusted right-hand man for the last decade, entered the restaurant with Michelle Chun, a former investigative journalist now working for Isabella's company on due diligence. "Isabella, what's going on?" James asked, taking a seat at a nearby table. "Take a look at that waiter," she said, subtly nodding towards Marcus. "I want you to document everything happening to him. Michelle, use your discreet camera. I suspect this is a case of systematic discrimination." Michelle immediately understood the gravity of the situation. As an Asian woman who had faced prejudice in her own industry, she recognized the signs immediately. For the next half hour, they watched a masterclass in subtle harassment. Patterson found fault with Marcus, every action: plates that weren't hot enough, glasses with imagined watermarks, napkins that weren't folded properly. "This is textbook harassment," Michelle whispered to Isabella, adjusting her hidden camera. "I'm capturing everything." Then something caught Isabella's attention. Throughout the harassment, Marcus would occasionally glance in her direction, not with desperation or a plea for help, but with something that resembled recognition. When Patterson forced Marcus to redo an entire table, because the knives weren't perfectly aligned, Isabella saw Marcus smile briefly. It wasn't a smile of someone broken, but of someone who understood exactly what was happening. "James," she whispered, "I need a full background check on Marcus Thompson. How many times has he been reprimanded or fired? Has he ever filed complaints?" The answer came swiftly. "Impeccable work history, no complaints. But there's something interesting." "What is it?" "He's very active on LinkedIn. He's constantly connecting with journalists, civil rights activists, labor lawyers. And look at this." James pulled out his phone and showed her. He posted about documenting work-related experiences for future reference just 3 weeks ago. A chill ran down Isabella's spine. Marcus wasn't just a passive victim. He was actively building a case. Sensing he was being observed, Marcus approached her table for the last time that evening. "Ma'am, I hope you enjoyed your meal. It was a pleasure serving you tonight." Isabella looked him in the eye. "Marcus, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. How long have you known who I am?" The smile that crossed Marcus's face was the first genuine one of the evening. "From the moment you walked in, Ms. Rodriguez. Your photo was on the cover of Forbes last month. The 30 most powerful women in technology." Isabella felt the ground shift beneath her. And yet I treated you like I would anyone else, because that's what decent people do." Marcus lowered his voice. "The question is, why is one of the most powerful women in the country pretending to be an ordinary customer in a restaurant where situations like the one you witnessed today are known to happen?" Isabella was speechless. Marcus had completely turned the tables. "Maybe," Marcus continued, "we're both testing something. The difference is that I always knew I was being tested." Patterson approached once more. "Thompson, stop bothering the customer. Go clean the tables in the back." Marcus nodded politely, but before walking away, He discreetly left a folded piece of paper on Isabella's table. When she opened it, she found a phone number along with a note. If you're truly interested in justice, call me tomorrow. I have something that might intrigue a woman who values honesty so much. Isabella watched Marcus walk away, realizing that she had completely misjudged the situation. She wasn't the only one testing someone. She, too, was being evaluated by a man who had seen through her charade from the very beginning, but chose to play along to see how far she would go. The question now was simple. If Marcus had recognized one of the richest women in the country, why had he remained genuinely respectful instead of trying to impress her? And more importantly, what exactly did he have to show that he thought was worthy of her attention? The following morning at 9:00 a.m., Isabella called Marcus. Her voice was different now, less controlled, more curious. You said you had something to show me. I'm still interested. Good. Can you meet me at Bethesda Fountain in Central Park in an hour? And Miss Rodriguez, bring your team. I have a feeling they'll want to document what I have to show you. An hour later, Isabella arrived with James and Michelle. Marcus was already there, sitting on a bench with a laptop and a bulky folder beside him. First of all, Marcus said, rising to greet them, I have to confess something. It wasn't a coincidence that I was working at Le Bernardin yesterday. Isabella frowned. What do you mean? Marcus opened his laptop. 6 months ago, I started investigating systematic discrimination in high-end restaurants. Le Bernardin was my third case. Patterson and management follow a clear pattern of harassment against black employees. On the screen, a detailed spreadsheet appeared, dates, times, witnesses, and descriptions of incidents, with hundreds of entries from the last 6 months. Marcus, Isabella said slowly, are you a journalist? I'm an educator specializing in inclusive education. But after my sister was unfairly fired from the hospital where she worked as a nurse, I decided I needed to do something bigger than just teach children about justice. Marcus moved to another tab. I found that 12 black employees were fired from Le Bernardin in the last 2 years, all on vague allegations about their performance or suitability. Meanwhile, white employees with documented infractions remained employed. Michelle leaned in to examine the data. Do you have proof of all this? Marcus smiled for the first time. Miss Chun, you're not the only one who knows how to use discrete recording devices. He clicked on an audio file. Patterson's voice came through clearly. I don't want these guys serving the main tables anymore. Customers complain. Find an excuse and get rid of them. This was recorded 3 months ago, Marcus explained. Patterson talking to the HR supervisor about Marcus Johnson, who was fired a week later for having an inappropriate attitude. Isabella sat down on the bench, processing the revelation. Marcus, you used me to gather more evidence. Not exactly. Marcus met her gaze directly. When I saw one of the most powerful women in the country choose to be served by me, I thought maybe you were testing the environment too. I decided to play along to see how far you'd go. James spoke up. What if she hadn't gone all the way? What if she was just another wealthy customer enjoying the privilege of witnessing discrimination firsthand? Marcus opened a new folder on his laptop. Then I'd have another documented case, with more proof of how the privileged enjoy watching others suffer. But Isabella was different. On the screen now appeared an official Department of Labor form. After our meeting last night, I finalized my formal complaint, 6 months of investigation, 347 hours of recordings, and 48 pieces of supporting evidence. Isabella raised an eyebrow. 347 hours, every shift, every conversation, every discriminatory instruction. Marcus closed the laptop. But here's the real issue: individual complaints rarely lead to change. Restaurants like Le Bernardin can afford top-tier lawyers and wield considerable political power. Michelle quickly grasped where Marcus was going. But if someone like you, one of the most powerful women in tech, publicly backed this complaint. Exactly. Marcus agreed, looking directly at Isabella. The question is, do you truly care about justice, or was yesterday just a personal experiment for you? Isabella took the laptop from Marcus and began reviewing the files. Each entry in the spreadsheet told a story of mistreatment, subtle racism, and missed opportunities, revealing a systemic pattern far more pervasive than anything she'd witnessed the night before. Patterson isn't just a biased manager, she said, finally breaking the silence. He's a systematic predator, and he's being shielded by the higher-ups. Richard Whitmore, the owner, is fully aware of what's happening. I have recordings of conversations where he tells Patterson to maintain a certain clientele standard. Isabella stood up suddenly. James, cancel my afternoon meetings. Michelle, gather the complete recording equipment. Marcus, do you have Patterson's contact information? I do. Why? Because we're going to give Mr. Patterson exactly what he deserves. And we're doing it today. 2 hours later, Isabella walked into Lou Bernardine once more, but this time, she was dressed in an impeccable Armani suit, her hair styled perfectly, and using her real identity. James accompanied her as her assistant, while Michelle took a seat nearby, blending in as a regular customer. Good afternoon. I need to speak with the manager, Patterson, Isabella said to the hostess. Certainly, miss, may I ask the reason? Isabella Rodriguez, CEO of Rodriguez Tech. I'd like to discuss a potential corporate catering contract. Patterson appeared in under 2 minutes, his smile wide. Miss Rodriguez, it's a true honor to have you here. Richard Whitmore mentioned we might discuss a partnership. Isabella kept her expression neutral. Mr. Patterson, last night I dined here as an ordinary customer. It was an eye-opening experience. We hope it exceeded your expectations. Our standard of excellence is second to none. I did notice a few interesting patterns, Isabella said. She pulled out her cell phone, particularly regarding his waiter, Marcus Thompson. Patterson's smile faltered slightly. Thompson, I hope there were no issues. On the contrary, Isabella replied, I observed your interactions with him throughout the evening. It was quite instructive. Isabella pressed play on a recording, and Patterson's voice filled the room. Thompson, you're here to serve, not to play babysitter with the customer's children. A few nearby diners stopped talking. Patterson's face drained of color. Miss Rodriguez, I can explain. Can you? Isabella raised the volume. Now Patterson's voice could be heard shouting. How many times do I have to tell you that you're not a babysitter? This is a respectable establishment, not a daycare. The entire dining room went silent. Isabella turned to the other customers. Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing firsthand how this restaurant treats its black employees when they believe no one important is watching. Patterson attempted to step forward to lower the volume, but James quickly positioned himself between them. I'm not finished, Isabella said, her voice firm. She played another recording, this time of Patterson and the restaurant owner discussing the need to keep the clientele upscale by avoiding black servers at prime tables. Murmurs of indignation began to ripple through the room. Some customers rose to leave while others began filming with their phones. Miss Rodriguez, please, let's speak in private, Patterson said, sweating profusely, just as he had the night before when he humiliated Marcus Thompson behind closed doors, believing no one would care. Isabella turned to face the entire room. This establishment runs a system of institutional racial discrimination. I have 6 months of documented proof. At that moment, Marcus walked through the door, no longer in his waiter's uniform, but in a simple suit, a briefcase in hand. Marcus Thompson, educator and researcher on workplace discrimination. Mr. Patterson, I believe we've met. Patterson tried to retreat, but he found himself cornered between tables and an increasingly vocal crowd of outraged customers. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus began, his calm voice carrying across the room. For the past 6 months, I've been working here, documenting a systematic pattern of discrimination, every insult, every biased order, every opportunity denied because of race. He opened his briefcase and began to lay out photos and documents on a nearby table. 12 black employees fired in 2 years. None of the white employees let go in that time despite far more serious infractions. A customer moved closer to examine the documents. Is this real? Absolutely, Isabella answered, and Patterson here knew all about it. In fact, he was a key player in this. Patterson finally regained his composure. You can't do this. I'll sue you for defamation. Marcus smiled calmly. Mr. Patterson, defamation requires false information. Everything here is documented and verifiable. By the way, the labor attorneys representing the 12 employees you wronged would love to have a word with you. And, Isabella added, Rodriguez Tech has just permanently cancelled any possibility of a partnership with this restaurant. I can also guarantee that none of the 200 companies in our network will ever do business here. The hostess nervously approached. Mr. Patterson, Mr. Whitmore is on the phone. He says it's urgent. Patterson knew his career was over. In just 20 minutes, his systematic discrimination had been exposed in front of a room full of influential clients, captured with professional equipment, and witnessed by the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the country. Marcus, Isabella said, extending her hand toward him, I believe we still have that conversation to finish about giving your twins the father they deserve. Marcus smiled, shaking her hand. Miss Rodriguez, I believe we've both passed the test. As Patterson scrambled to explain himself on the phone, and customers continued to walk out in protest, a new reality began to take shape in the restaurant. Justice had been served, not through anger or revenge, but with strategy, documentation, and the courage of two individuals who refused to accept that prejudice was just a part of the world. But the real transformation was only beginning. Sometimes, the pursuit of justice is just the first step toward creating something far more meaningful. A family not built on tests or facades, but on the mutual recognition of values that truly matter. 6 months later, Patterson was unemployed and facing a lawsuit for employment discrimination. Le Bernardin had shut down after a viral scandal and lost its operating license. Richard Whitmore was forced to sell the property in a liquidation. Marcus was now in charge of Rodriguez Tech's social inclusion program, turning his passion for education into corporate policy. Isabella found that her twins Sophia and Diego had become very fond of Uncle Marcus, who taught them about justice through stories. "Mummy, is Marcus going to be our new daddy?" Sophia asked during dinner. Isabella smiled, watching Marcus help Diego with his homework. "What do you think?" "He's different from the other men you've introduced us to," Diego said. "He really listens to us." Marcus approached. "Isabella, can we talk in the garden?" He took her hands. "I know we started out testing each other, but I've found something real. I want to build a family based on honesty, not experiments." "Me too," she replied. "I've learned that real character shows in adversity, not in times of abundance." A year later, the Rodriguez Foundation, led by Isabella and Marcus, had helped 200 black professionals secure meaningful jobs. Patterson attempted to sue for defamation, but lost after 20 former employees testified against him. Marcus had turned his painful experience into a lifelong mission. Isabella realized that the best father for her children wasn't the man who tried to impress them with wealth, but the one who demonstrated values when no one was watching. True wealth isn't in what we possess, but in who we choose to stand by us during the storms. Sometimes, we need to pretend to be someone else to discover who we truly are. And more importantly, to recognize authenticity in a world filled with masks. Subscribe to his channel for more stories that prove that justice and true love always find a way to prevail.